Hello there, lovely to have hopefully lots and lots of you on the live broadcast today. And today we're going to be talking about leadership. But before I start, I'll do my usual introductions. So hello if you're watching on LinkedIn Live or live on LinkedIn. If you're watching on our Facebook page, hello to those of you on Facebook. And if you're watching live on YouTube, hello to you on YouTube, wherever you may be. And again, equally, hello to all of those who are watching the recording post today's live broadcast. Many, many thanks for watching, and you're very welcome. And any questions that you may have, please feel free to get in touch or put questions in the chat box as per usual. Now, what have we got today? So we will have some swag today. Now, we didn't give away the swag last time because nobody won it. So we've got the same swag this week that we had last week. It's the DVD movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? The Richest Man in Babylon, the personal development classic, and another personal development classic, The Science of Getting Rich. They will be up for grabs today, and we will pull the draw at the end of the live broadcast. And as usual, just put in the chat box. Let me load that up there now. In the chat box, hashtag swag. And then at the end, as per usual, the software runs a little thing and it picks a winner. So that's what we will do. So I will say thank you for all the feedback we had from last week. We didn't have very many people watching live, but certainly on the recording, we've had lots of comments, which has been very, very nice. And yes, those offers are still available. There was 3 offers that we had. There was the 6 books. They're still up for grabs. You should go onto our website, UKCPD.co.uk, click on personal development, and it's there, book offer. Likewise, the personal development offer is still there. The 3 courses are heavily discounted. Just click on the button and you'll be able to pick those 3 courses as well. And as you can see here from our ticker, we still have the 20% discount on the level 5 and level 7 coaching and mentoring qualifications. But because we're talking about leadership today, we've added in the level 5 certificate in leadership and management. It's the same discount offer, 20% off. Use the discount code LL offer. That's LL offer in the checkout as you go through. Or if you need a payment plan, just get in touch with the office and we'll go through the normal procedure to set up a payment plan for you. So let me just get rid of these for now. And so as always, we've got some slides to share. So let me just add those to the stream now. So there we go. And let me load up the comments box. So anybody who wants to ask me a question can go and ask me that as I go. Right, I've done all my announcements. So we'll get on with today's presentation, which is exploring leadership. Now, it's a huge subject, leadership. And in this methodology, you know, I'm going to touch on a few things and a few ideas, look at a couple of sort of models that come up a lot in the text if you were studying leadership or maybe even management. Similar sort of things come up quite often. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the basic idea, I think, that if you're going to be in a leadership position, you might want to master. So leadership. So when you hear the word leadership or you think about leadership, I guess the starting question for you is what comes to mind? What sort of person, what sort of individual, or is there a particular person that springs to mind when you think of the word leadership? And whether you're watching live or on the recording, I'd encourage you to think about that now before I go on to the next set of slides. When you think of leadership, who specifically do you think about? It'd be a good idea maybe if you wrote that down, because that then will be a reference point maybe later on when we start doing some comparisons. So think about leadership. Who springs to mind? Maybe there's a historical figure or somebody in your life that you really thought, yeah, they were a great leader, they were inspiring, or whatever reference that you may have. Now, when you think of leadership, maybe individuals like this spring to mind. Oftentimes they do because, well, they're often in the news or in movies, and we sort of read about them and we know of maybe it's not what we might call beneficial or benevolent leadership. Or you may think of somebody like one of these individuals. Very, very slightly different. One would think, well, more than slightly different to these 3. These very, very different categories and indeed styles of leadership. Or maybe you think of a teacher or a university professor or a college tutor that you had, or maybe there's a friend that you have is a great example of leadership, or a boss that you may have now or perhaps in the past that was, you think that's the kind of person I think about when I think about leader, or who had an effect on me and were sort of a leader in the development of my life and my personality, or maybe a leader in your particular industry. So in my industry, personal development, NLP in particular, there are lots of people I really admire as leaders in the field. So it's useful to think about those when you think about leadership. So as always, a couple of quotations here for you. And I particularly like this, really. The very essence of leadership is that you have a vision. So you're a leader, you've got to have a vision. And it's got to be a vision that you articulate clearly and forcefully on every occasion. And this last bit here, you can't blow an uncertain trumpet. And I think that's really, really interesting when you think about leadership. You've got to have a vision, and you've got to be able to articulate it in a clear way that people understand it. This particular quote here from Mitt Romney of the American Senate: leadership is about taking responsibility, not making excuses. So it's about taking responsibility and not making excuses. Now, oftentimes leadership and management kind of come into the same bracket, or they kind of end up being in the same kind of sentence. So as an example, ILM Leadership Level 5 certificate in leadership and management. However, they're very different methodologies, they're very different disciplines, they're different practices, even though there is, of course, quite a lot of overlapping, depending where you are in the food chain in an organization, or how you see your role within the organization generally. But I think this quote here from Covey is kind of helpful in a way. Management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. And I've always liked that quotation because I think it does really demonstrate the difference between the two kind of roles, even though sometimes it's a question of hats, and sometimes individuals, well, I say a lot of time in the modern workplace, end up wearing two hats, but it's a bit context and when you're wearing which hat, depending on the part of the job that you are doing. So as I've kind of mentioned, I'm going to touch on a couple of theories and models that are often referenced in books or in material that you might study if you're doing a leadership qualification or a leadership program. And actually, when I was putting this presentation together, I was reminded, this is about 20 years ago, we were asked as an organization to develop a leadership program for a large firm. And we said yes, of course. And then I proceeded to study, about between 30 and 40, maybe even 50 leadership books to figure out really what were the, prevailing models of leadership, or what seemed very, very popular, or maybe what was kind of new. And it's very interesting to me. A lot of it was very old theories, very old ideas about humans and how they interact with each other. And so the first couple of things we're going to share here come from that sort of stable, where I think maybe they're not quite actually worth studying anymore. So we start off with the great man theory. This is, sort of popularized or proposed by Thomas Carlyle way back in the day. And really, the idea here is you're born that way. You were born to be a leader, a hero that would lead the many to the sort of golden sunlit uplands. The problem with this, of course, is that we all know for sure that leaders are not born. You can learn leadership, just like learn any skill. And also, oftentimes, people who think they're born into leadership from some ancestral sort of thing, because somehow they think that makes them a great leader, and history's proved that to be demonstrably not true. And of course, one of the problems with this is it says great man theory, and we know for sure that the female gender has got a lot to offer to the table when it comes to leadership. Now, another sort of old idea here, and it's kind of linked to the first one, this notion of the trait theory of leadership. And the idea here is that some people just inherently have the traits that are great for leadership. They've got some kind of great intelligence, or they're very decisive, or maybe they're kind of charismatic and have got some great people skills. Maybe people perceive them to be trustworthy, and so on. And in fact, there's a big long list of traits that were, listed out that would indicate these are the things that make great leaders. The problem with that, of course, is, if you're suggesting that people inherently, that goes back to this notion that you're born with it. And we all know for sure that you can learn all of these things. It's just like any other subject or any other skill or practice, you can learn it. And the trait theory is often compared to or part of this notion of a great man theory, which I think really history has shown is not necessarily a useful thing to think about. So brings up to a little bit more modern thinking, I suppose, transactional leadership, this idea of, in an organization, the boss or the manager has something that the employees want. And so there's this kind of exchange. You do this to a certain standard, I'll give you your salary or maybe even a bonus. This transactional leadership is often used for sales teams as an example. So the motivation is the carrot and maybe the stick if you don't reach particular targets. In my mind, though, I have to say, I have a feeling this is more of a management thing than it is a leadership thing. But I know people will shout at their screens right now and write in the emails and say, no, it's a great leadership model and these are the reasons why. This is just my personal opinion. I think really it's more of a management tool, hence the carrot and stick illustration that I've got here. Again, moving up to what I might call what's generally accepted, I think, certainly the books that I read and the seminars that I attend, this notion of transformational leadership is quite a popular model to teach senior leaders or even to get team leaders to have this notion is that they're bettering people in some way. That, you're helping people to become more than they were. That it's not just command and control. This idea that you're helping people grow into their role and then beyond. You're going to grow into the role and then beyond so that they become the leaders of the next generation as the organization grows and moves forwards. And I think this quote, this Ford Taylor, he's done a lot of writing around this notion of transformational leadership. And I think this is an interesting quote, given the world that we now live in. We have a leadership crisis in our world today. That's off saying that. It is based on the reality that we have developed leaders who care more about what people think about them or how they are seen than they do care about the people who are supposedly following them. And I think oftentimes that's right, because we often have leaders, especially in public life, who care more about their social media appearances than they do the people they're meant to be looking after, leading, and improving the lives of. And I guess it would be easy to point to individuals. I mean, I don't want to get into too much politics on these broadcasts, but it is easy to identify somebody who would fit into that category who's been in a leadership position quite recently. Then we get on to servant leadership, and certainly this is a more modern and a particular leadership model that I think has got a lot of legs and credence because it seems to really work out in the real world. And the idea here is that the leader really is the servant of whomever they're leading, and they make situations, they enable situations and resources available so people can do the things that they need to do. They make sure that rather than creating problems for the people who work for them or in their organization, they find solutions, or they empower people to find the solutions. And so Robert Greenleaf here, he's done a huge amount of writing around this version of leadership, or this notion of a model of leadership. And I think this is a good quote. And again, it reminds you of some of the people we have in power who run things who maybe don't have this idea. The servant leader is servant first. So the leader is a servant first. And it begins with this natural feeling of wanting to serve as opposed to wanting power, influence, fame, or wealth. So the idea is I'm here to serve rather than I want to be all powerful and people taking photographs of me and, like I'm some kind of rock star. It's a very different thing. A little bit about leadership styles. This comes up in a lot of leadership books as well. I've just picked out 3 here. There are others, of course. So the first thing here is autocratic. The autocratic leader. Do this or else. If you don't do this, you'll be for the high jump. And there's centralized authority and low participation of others. So it really is command and control. The laissez-faire, do this or that as you see fit. It's kind of hands-off management, letting people sort of figure things out for themselves, can lead to problems and maybe even low productivity because there's no checks and balances. And then we have the notion of a democratic leader, which is best, this or that. So the team are being involved in that process, high involvement of the people around the leader in the organization or in the team to probably get the best ideas out there and develop them to be able to move the organization or the team forward. And at that point, I guess I'd ask the question, given what we've just looked at then, and again, there is a lot more out there, when you think about leadership models and styles and all of that. But you might want to think, well, okay, what is my leadership style? Whether I'm a team leader or a manager or a senior executive in an organization, or if I've got sort of people that report into me, what is my leadership approach? And have I ever checked to see if it works? Or if there's some sharp edges that might need smoothing down? Maybe that's something you could discuss perhaps with your coach or something like that, or go on a course and maybe to develop new knowledge and some new skills. So at this point, I thought it'd be useful, and I just pulled a few slides out of one of the training programs that we've done. It's quite a while ago. The problem space for leaders. You sort of come up through the ranks, and you're good at your job. Oftentimes, people say, "Well, he's good at the job, or she's good at that job. Let's put them in charge." And oftentimes, that's not a great idea because they're good at that, but not necessarily good at leading a team or running an organization. So the first problem, or first challenge, the leader or the new leader might have is the self role, who I see myself as, and the relationships I've had with people before, because I've suddenly been put forward by the management or by the owners of the business or by whoever made those decisions. But of course, I've got relations with the people I was sat at a desk on the factory floor with already. And so suddenly I'm a different person. So my role has changed. I might have to change. My attitude might have to change. And I have to think about the relationships that I have had beforehand. And then, of course, it becomes, I'm the leader, or I'm the team leader, I'm the manager or the senior person. I've got to take people somewhere. What's the vision? What's the objective of this team? What's the task that I have to work on? And I might have inherited that. And do I really believe in it? Do I believe this is a great idea? I might have a better idea or maybe a better strategy. So that's the second problem part that new leaders or a leader may bump into. Then, of course, it's the organizational history, the history that I might inherit, especially if I've come in from outside. If I've come up to the ranks and I've been around a long time, maybe that's not a problem. But the organizational history, if I've come in from the outside, and certainly we've seen that in organizations that we've worked with here, where somebody new's come in, all shiny and great ideas, but there's this huge organizational history that kind of almost like trying to turn the tanker in the ocean. It's hard work. And of course, the history of other group members who may have their own ideas about how things ought to be done, and kind of looking at you as the new shiny leader thinking, well, he thinks or she thinks she's great, but actually I have the solutions here, and I'm a bit disenchanted that I was not selected. And again, recent history at the political level, maybe there's something there that we might be able to resonate with and think about. And then finally, it's the organizational structure. That I may have inherited. I just think this doesn't work in the modern world. And then I have to think about, how am I going to change it? How am I going to change it and bring people with me? And we'll come back to that in a second. And then the last kind of, I guess, two factors that have a huge impact especially on a new leader, is the financial pressure that they will have inherited and market forces. Market forces, of course, in an organization, we're selling a service or we're selling products or a mix of both. And, how's the market changing, how they're reacting to our new ideas, and the financial pressure that brings in with rising costs of raw materials and so on. So it's a complex place when a leader finds himself sat at that desk on day one, or even, they come up to the ranks and you're saying, right, now I'm responsible. And also thinking about my role, the relationships I've got, the history of the organization, the vision, how much of that do I resonate with, and so on. So it's a big piece. Hence, we have leadership development programs. And I would always recommend, if you're in a leadership position, you definitely ought to have a coach. So another quotation here before we go on to an example of what I think is a useful way of thinking if you are in a leadership position. Clarity affords focus and integrity reveals beauty. I really, really like that. Now, those of you who don't know, Thomas Leonard is considered by many to be the father of the modern coaching movement. And he's written several books, and he was one of the founding members of the ICF back in the day. And in a way, his quotation is the basis of the basic model of leadership that I teach and that I sort of mentor people with or coach people with when I'm coaching leaders. This idea, detail, communicate, or IDC for short. And so it starts off very, very simple. Have a clear clarity of purpose. You need to be clear. Now, we talk about clarity of purpose in other broadcasts and other sort of things that we've done around here about this notion of a well-formed outcome. It's crystal clear. It's resource, time, all of those kind of things. Well structured. We're very, very clear about what's going on. And purpose part's impossible. Why? That's the why. We're doing it for a reason. There's no just like, oh, I'm just going to do it because. So the idea for progress has to be super clear, and we need to know the why of that. Then the second part is a strategy on how we're going to deliver this outcome. So we have the outcome, and we have a reason why, and it's pretty solid. And then it's like, how are we going to do it? Specific detail on how and why this is the methodology that's being recommended to take the organization or the team forward. It's very, very clear, and we have some idea how this is going to happen. And then the sort of final part is how we communicate that message. We deliver the message of both the outcome and the strategy with really high quality communication so that everybody really gets it. They understand what the goal is or what the vision is, and they understand why that's the reason to go in that direction. They understand the strategy. It makes sense to them, and they see how their part fits into that. And they get the communication in such a way that they're convinced. So it's put across with passion and influence and enough detail that people go, yeah, I see that and I understand it. And I said here, beginning with the end in mind. So communicate with the end in mind, which is another Covey quotation. Now, I don't want to get too involved in politics on these broadcasts, but thinking about, this particular Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who, came to power, was a big vote, blah, 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 she got into power, and had these great ideas, or had some great ideas, or she thought they were great ideas anyway, but it didn't quite work out. And I was thinking about this only yesterday. Actually, I added these two bits in yesterday. So was there clarity of purpose and a solid outcome? The answer is maybe there was in her head, but certainly not in a lot of people on our party, and certainly not in the country. Was there a well-developed strategy? Absolutely. I don't believe that there was. Now, there may have been, but it certainly wasn't then in the third part communicated to enough people that everybody understood, that's the reason why, that's how it's going to work. It's not a basket case idea, because the markets and the country and her own people reacted fairly poorly, I'm going to say, to the message that was delivered. So going back then to what I was saying, if you're clear about your purpose and it's a solid outcome and people understand the whys, that's the direction, and there's a strategy that's fairly bulletproof, but with enough flexibility in to flex when things change around you, and you deliver that message in a clear way that everybody really gets it, chances are you'll be fairly successful. So this is kind of a thumbnail overview here again. Clarity of purpose, crystal clear outcome with details on the how and a believable reason why. And I think that's quite important. And then have that ability to communicate in a way that the many understand and not just perhaps a few people at the top. Now, another model that I often use pretty much every time, actually, in any sort of change work that we do here, be it changing internal change in organization or coaching at senior level, is Robert Dilts' logical levels. For those of you who are not familiar with it, environment, where we find ourselves, be it in the organization, the office, how big or small you want to take that sort of scale, and then the behaviors that go on within that environment, what skills and capabilities we have, beliefs and values, identity, and higher purpose or ambition, vision that we have at the top. Now, thinking about, we've got an outcome, so I just go back one, we have a very, very clear outcome and we need to communicate it. How does it fit into this model? So does something need to change in the environment so that people get it or see it, or are able even to implement the strategy, or the behaviors that need to change, and so on. So I think, here we go on this slide. So, in the environment, the basic place where things are happening, what needs to change, if indeed anything? What behaviors would say something about us, that we're on a mission, we're going somewhere? What skills and capabilities? What's missing? Do we need to add into the team or the organization? What beliefs and values do we have around? Remember I said before, the idea and the strategy has to be believable, because people think, this is not going to happen. We don't believe it. We saw what happened quite recently with Liz Truss. It has to be believable by the many and not just the few. And then we go on this journey. Who are we? Who are we going to become by taking this step forward in organization or in our team and so on? And it has to be crystal clear vision, so people really get it and want to buy in. And also coaching, another thing when it comes to leadership, there's a lot of stuff being written about this at the moment, coaching as a leadership model. So the coaching leader works with individuals or teams to develop the strengths in an effort to improve the overall success of the team or the organization or the department, whatever that might be. And the coaching leader, they're goal-orientated, they're not problem-focused. And they look to empower people to figure things out. So they give them that sort of bandwidth to try and figure things out, which of course is a big investment, but it reaps rewards because people become more confident in their jobs and they feel that they can get more things done, and they become the next generation of leaders, of course. So they're able to really sort of move forward. And this is one of the graphics that is often used, the coach as leader. So they inspire, they motivate, occasionally they might need to mentor. You see coaching and mentoring, sometimes it's a question of hats, and obviously they're going to coach and encourage the best out of the people that they've got working for them and around them. So just a kind of a summary, sort of, I guess, putting all of that together into one sort of slide. What you might think, okay, what skills do leaders really need? They need to be strategic. They need to have that vision, develop the vision, and maybe even build in flexibility that we live in a sort of a changing world, how that might be delivered, able to plan for delivery. They need to be good people managers as well. Definitely will have a change management skill, or that sort of what we might call flexibility and agility to respond, keeping your eye on the ball, keeping your eye on the vision, but able to sort of tack like a sailing ship to make sure that you can get through all of the things that happen when you want to take an organization or a team somewhere new. Great communication skills is super important, and of course that leads on to being able to persuade and influence people for the better. So I mentioned this already, but here it is on a slide. Excuse me. So level 5 and level 7, either certificate or diploma, coaching and mentoring, ILM qualifications, 20% off. That's still running. And we've added in today, as we're talking about leadership, the level 5 certificate in leadership and management. The discount code there is LL offer. And this is going to run. We've extended it a bit, actually, because people have asked, well, when will that run out? Because I'm just waiting for my employer to sign it off and stuff like that. So it'll run up until the end of November, the 30th of November. And again, you just use the code at the checkout, or if you need a payment plan, just get in touch and we'll be able to figure that out for you. And one of the questions that came in from last time was, how do we deliver these qualifications? What's our methodology? So the methodology is fairly simple, to be honest with you. It's a kind of our blended learning approach for the coaching and mentoring qualifications. Once you're registered, you get access to all of the study content. It's all on the server. You log in, videos, resources, research papers, all sorts of things. You're assigned a personal tutor, and they're there to support you through the entire process. In addition to that, we have a whole series of live workshops that we encourage. They're not compulsory, but we encourage the students to come along to those, as many as they can, because that really does add something really unique to that learning experience. Just studying on your own is okay, and it works, but being able to interact with other students and different tutors and ask questions in real time is really super. Similar with the leadership and management qualification, there are no live workshops per se, although there is with this one, as it happens. But you have a tutor and they support you all the way through. If you want to know more, just go onto the website and you'll be able to see that for yourself. Okay, so let me just come out of that. I'll put my glasses back on. There we go. Remove. There we go. Okay, so let me just put the banners back up so people can see what's going on. Now, just checking in the chat box. We don't have anybody live, so I can't run the giveaway, so they'll go forward to next week. If you've got any questions about anything what we've talked about today, feel free to get in touch. The video will go out in about 10 minutes to the various different channels that we broadcast live on, and I will see you live next week. We're talking about a completely different topic, and I'll post more about that in due course. Till then, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.